I drove 9 hours to surprise my husband at his work retreat. I brought his favorite dinner and our kids' handmade cards. When I walked into the hotel room, he wasn't alone. A woman in my clothes was lying on the bed laughing, holding my wedding ring. He looked me dead in the eye and said, "You were never supposed to see this." I left without a word. 3 months later, I sent them both a wedding gift they'll never forget. I don't know why I'm telling this story now. Maybe because I finally don't feel like throwing up every time I think about it. Maybe because people need to hear what betrayal really looks like, not the polished version you see in movies. This happened when I was 32. I was married. 2 kids, a home, a life that I thought was normal. Good even. We lived outside of Akron, Ohio. A little town where everybody waves when they drive by and nobody locks their doors at night. Jake was my high school sweetheart. We started dating our senior year. Everybody thought we were perfect. We got married after college. We did everything right, or at least, I thought we did. We struggled for the first few years like most couples. Money was tight. Jobs sucked. But eventually, things settled. He got promoted to regional sales manager for this mid-sized tech company. I got a teaching job at the elementary school 2 blocks from our house. We had 2 kids, Sam and Lily. I loved being a mom. I loved being a wife. I thought Jake loved being a husband. Then came that October. Jake told me he had a work retreat in Pennsylvania. 3 days of meetings, training, team-building crap. He said he wouldn't have time for calls, maybe quick texts here and there. I didn't think anything was wrong. He traveled a lot for work. It was Lily's idea, actually. She asked if we could bring Daddy a surprise. "We can drive to Daddy," she said. I laughed at first. It was a cute idea. Then I thought about it more. Why not? He'd be happy to see us, right? I cooked his favorite meal. Chicken Alfredo, heavy on the garlic. Baked fresh bread. Made a little care package. I packed up the car with the food and the kids' homemade cards. We left at 6 a.m. 9 hours. 9 hours of backseat fights, potty stops, spilled juice, and crying. But it didn't matter. I was excited. I kept picturing the look on Jake's face when he opened that hotel door. When we pulled into the hotel parking lot, it was already dark. I cracked the windows, left the car running with the heat on low, and told Sam to keep an eye on Lily. "Just a minute, guys. I'll get Daddy." I walked into the lobby, carrying the bag of food, wearing my best excited smile. Told the front desk lady I was here to surprise my husband. She smiled like it was the sweetest thing she'd heard all day. Told me he was in room 312. I still had no clue. The elevator ride felt like it took forever. My hands were shaking, but I thought it was just the adrenaline of the surprise. I knocked once. The door wasn't latched properly. It swung open a crack. I pushed it the rest of the way. The first thing I noticed was the smell. Perfume and sweat. Not a work meeting smell. The second thing was the laughter. A woman's laughter, high-pitched and light, like bells. You were never supposed to see this. Like it was nothing. Like I was nothing. I didn't say a word. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I just turned around and walked back down that hallway. I don't remember getting back to the car. I don't remember putting the kids in their seats. I drove away before I even knew where I was going. Found a cheap roadside motel. Paid cash. Locked the door. Pulled the curtains shut. I stayed awake all night, sitting in a plastic chair, staring at the wall. The next morning, Jake still hadn't called. Not even a text. He just let me go. I got back home and lawyered up immediately. I wasn't going to cry and beg. My lawyer was a sharp woman named Rhonda. She barely blinked when I told her what happened. Said she'd seen worse. She asked for the hotel receipt, the food bag, the wedding ring, which Jake had apparently tossed on the nightstand because it was still in the room when hotel security retrieved my things. That was more than enough to start. And then came the real fun. Digging through our joint finances. Jake had been spending thousands on this woman. Hotels. dinners, spa days, jewelry. He'd even rented a beach house with her over the summer while telling me he was at a conference in North Carolina. Everything was in our joint accounts. It was him and her, Kaylee. Big smiles. Matching shirts. Caption said, "She's my home now." Home. After 15 years together, 2 kids, a mortgage, 3 moves, and God knows how many hospital runs and birthdays and anniversaries, he called her his home. I sat there with my laptop open, the screen burning into my eyes, and I decided I wasn't going to be the sad ex-wife. I wasn't going to post vague quotes about healing or self-love like some wounded deer. I was going to hurt them. And not just once. I was going to make it slow. I was going to make it last. First thing I did was reach out to Jake's company's HR department, anonymously, through my lawyer. Turns out, Jake had been violating company policy by dating a subordinate. Kaylee wasn't just some girl he met at a bar. She worked in the same company. Under him. Literally and figuratively. His company had a very strict no fraternization policy, especially between managers and employees. 3 weeks later, Jake was demoted. Massive pay cut. Half his bonus gone. No more travel perks. No more retreats. He posted some whiny stuff online about corporate politics and toxic workplaces. I kept screenshots. I smiled. Next, I sent out fake wedding gift registry notices to their entire Facebook friends list. People thought they were getting invited to a real wedding shower. When they clicked the link, it led to a page that said, "Jake and Kaylee are registered under congratulations on betrayal and home wrecking," with a tasteful background of a broken heart bleeding onto a Bible. It got shared. It got screenshotted. It got messy. Jake and Kaylee shut down their Facebooks a few days later. Kaylee's family, who were very religious, stopped speaking to her. I heard through the grapevine that her father said she was dead to him. Again, I smiled. Apparently, they thought it was a prank at first. By month 4, they were filing police reports. By month 7, Kaylee was posting rants in local Facebook groups about stalkers and harassment and disgusting threats. Nobody helped them. Nobody knew it was me. I paid extra for total privacy. Their shiny little life turned into a dumpster fire. Jake's broke. Kaylee's working 2 jobs. They live in a 1-bedroom apartment over a liquor store. Jake's truck got repossessed. Kaylee's credit is shot because Jake racked up debt in both their names. And me? I'm sitting in my own place, warm and safe, my kids doing their homework at the kitchen table, the dog snoring at my feet. Sometimes I think about the night at the hotel. About the way he looked at me and said, "You were never supposed to see this." And sometimes, just sometimes, I wish I could go back and whisper in my own ear, "You're going to be just fine." And they're going to drown in their own mess. About 8 months after Jake and Kaylee's wedding, I got a certified letter in the mail. It was from Jake's lawyer. Apparently, Jake wanted to revisit the custody agreement. He claimed he was more stable now and wanted joint custody of the kids. Translation: he wanted to cut down his brutal child support payments. I sat at the kitchen table, rereading that letter about 5 times, my hands shaking with anger. This man who hadn't even sent birthday cards for 2 years. This man who missed every single school play, every dentist appointment, every parent-teacher conference. This man thought he could just walk back in because he needed money. I called Rhonda, my lawyer. She laughed so hard I had to hold the phone away from my ear. "Let him try," she said. "We'll bury him." And bury him we did. Jake showed up to the custody hearing in an ill-fitting suit. Kaylee was with him, wearing a stiff little dress and clutching a fake leather purse. I came in with binders. Photos, report cards, doctor's notes, school letters. All proof that Jake had been absent. The judge was not amused. Result: Jake lost his visitation rights even further. Now, he only got monthly supervised visits at a facility paid for out of his pocket. And child support? Increased by 15%. I swear, When the judge read the ruling, I heard Jake mutter under his breath, "She's ruining my life." Good. I thought that would be the end of it. But no. Kaylee, desperate and bitter, decided to start messaging me. At first, it was fake apologies. "I'm sorry you're hurting. We didn't mean for it to happen. You need to move on and let Jake be happy." When I didn't answer, the tone changed. "You're a bitter old hag. No wonder he left you. Your kids are going to hate you for keeping them from their father." Screenshots. All of it. I sent them straight to Rhonda. And in Ohio? Harassment through electronic communications is a misdemeanor. Filed a restraining order against Kaylee so fast, she probably didn't know what hit her. Not even close. Because a month after the restraining order was filed, Kaylee lost her job. Apparently, her new employer didn't like having employees with pending harassment charges. I didn't even have to lift a finger on that one. Jake's income alone wasn't enough to cover their bills anymore. They lost the apartment. Last I heard, they were crashing with one of Jake's old college buddies, sleeping on a pull-out couch. You'd think after all that, they'd finally crawl away and leave me and my kids alone. But Jake and Kaylee? They weren't built for quiet defeat. Instead, they decided their misery was my fault. Not Jake's cheating. Not Kaylee's harassment. Not their reckless spending. Me. They started a GoFundMe. I wish I was joking. They titled it, "Help Us Rebuild After Unfair Attacks." In the description, they spun this whole sob story about being persecuted by a vengeful ex who couldn't move on and used the system to destroy their love. They asked for $10,000. I read it 3 times. Couldn't believe the nerve. Then I watched as the comments rolled in. Some friends and family donated at first. Mostly pity money. But then a few people, real people, started asking questions. Questions like, didn't he cheat on his wife with her? Isn't there a restraining order? Where is kids in all of this? It unraveled fast. Within a week, the GoFundMe page was shut down for violations of terms of service. They got maybe $300 total before it collapsed. And that's when Jake snapped. Jake made a Facebook post that night. A long, drunken rant tagging about 40 people. He accused me of alienating him from his children. Said I was a liar and a psycho who had ruined his career. He even said, "This part kills me," that Kaylee was the only real family he ever had. About a month later, I was pulling into the grocery store parking lot with the kids when I spotted a familiar beat-up red sedan. Jake. He was standing by the carts, looking like hell thinner, bags under his eyes, hair messy. He spotted me and started walking over. My stomach twisted. The kids hadn't seen him in almost 4 months. I got out, calm but ready for anything. He stopped a few feet away and said, "Can we talk?" I crossed my arms. "No. You talk to my lawyer." He looked at the kids, at Sam, who was helping Lily with her seatbelt, and his face crumbled for just a second. "I messed up," he said quietly. "I don't know how to fix it." I stared at him. The man who once held my hand in a delivery room. The man who danced with me barefoot in our kitchen at midnight. Now just a broken shell of that man. I wanted to feel something. Pity. Rage. Relief. But mostly, I felt nothing. "You don't," I said. "You live with it." I got back in the car, locked the doors, drove away. Jake didn't chase me, didn't scream, didn't pound on the windows. He just stood there in the parking lot as we pulled out. A few weeks after that grocery store run-in, Kaylee pulled one last desperate move. She showed up at my house. It was a Sunday afternoon. I was in the backyard pulling weeds when I heard the front doorbell ringing over and over nonstop. At first, I thought maybe it was a package delivery. Nope. There she was. Standing on my front porch in cheap jeans and a sweatshirt that looked about 3 days old, hair in a greasy bun, face red and puffy like she'd been crying for days. I stayed behind the locked glass door and didn't even open it. "Please," she begged through the glass. "I just need to talk to you." I stared at her, saying nothing. "I'm pregnant," she blurted out. I didn't react. I didn't flinch. She kept talking anyway. "It's Jake's. I don't know what to do. He's not the man I thought he was. I thought we were in love. I thought we'd be happy. But he's broke, he's mean, he drinks all the time now. He blames me for everything." She was crying so hard she could barely talk. Still, I said nothing. I didn't even unlock the door. Kaylee pressed her hands against the glass. "I thought you would understand. I thought you would help me." That's when I laughed. Not a big dramatic laugh. A small, cold, bitter laugh. "You thought wrong," I said, loud enough for her to hear. And I closed the inside door in her face. I stood there in the dark hallway, listening to her sob for a few seconds. Then I heard her footsteps as she finally left. I didn't even watch her go. A few days later, one of Jake's old friends called me. Apparently, Jake didn't take the pregnancy news well. He accused Kaylee of trapping him. Said the baby wasn't his. Threw her out of their friend's apartment. Pregnant, alone, and desperate. I thought about stopping there. Really, I did. But after everything they'd done, what they tried to do to my life, to my kids, I decided they deserved one last surprise. Something they'd never forget. Something they'd feel every single day they woke up. Something that would remind them they had messed with the wrong woman. I spent a week thinking it over. It had to be clean. It had to be legal. It had to cut so deep they'd never fully recover. And then it hit me. Kaylee's baby? That was my insurance policy. Because now Jake had another child coming. Another mouth to feed. Another obligation he couldn't dodge. So I called Rhonda again. I asked her if there was a way to adjust the child support agreement based on Jake's new situation. She laughed and said, "Honey, you don't lower payments because he had another kid. You squeeze harder." Turns out, when a parent is proven to have other children, but isn't fulfilling obligations to the first set, the court comes down even harder on them. Especially when they're already in arrears for missed payments, which Jake was. Rhonda filed the motion within days. Jake didn't even show up for the first hearing. When he finally did show for the second, he looked like hell. Skinny, hollow-eyed, wearing a wrinkled polo shirt. Kaylee wasn't with him. Probably too busy figuring out how to survive at someone else's house. Jake tried to argue that he couldn't afford the payments anymore. The judge wasn't impressed. In fact, after reviewing his missed payments and hearing about the pending DUI, the judge increased wage garnishment, froze his bank accounts, suspended his driver's license until he made a minimum lump sum payment, ordered a lien on any future tax returns. Jake was screwed 6 ways from Sunday. And the look on his face when the judge read the decision? It almost made the 9-hour drive to that damn hotel room feel worth it. Almost I could have stopped there. But Kaylee had done too much damage to just walk away. So I contacted Child Protective Services anonymously. I simply explained that a heavily pregnant woman was couch surfing, unemployed, with no stable home, and that there were concerns about her ability to care for an infant. I didn't even have to lie. I just stated the facts. A caseworker opened an investigation. Kaylee lost custody of her baby within 72 hours of giving birth. Placed into temporary foster care. Kaylee begged Jake to step up as the father. He refused to even show up at the hearing. Without Jake's involvement and no stable family to claim the child, the baby was placed in long-term foster care pending adoption. Kaylee spiraled hard after that. I heard she tried moving out of state with a guy she barely knew. Drugs were involved. Police reports, arrests, a full nosedive. Jake? Last I heard, he was living in a halfway house, court-ordered for rehab after multiple DUIs. They destroyed each other faster than I ever could have. You'd think after everything, after the courts, the money, the ruined lives, that I'd feel nothing but satisfaction. And in some ways, I did. But here's the truth nobody tells you. Revenge comes with a cost, even when you're right. I won, yes. I burned them to the ground. But every late-night strategy session with Rhonda, Every screenshot, every carefully worded anonymous tip to the right agency, it kept me tied to them. Tied to him. Long after he should have just been a chapter in my life. There were nights I sat alone on my porch with a glass of wine, the kids tucked safe in bed, and wondered if maybe I lost too much of myself fighting them. Because even when the enemy is a monster, if you stay too close to the fire for too long, you get burned too. Jake is barely functioning. He completed court-ordered rehab, but he's unemployable. Nobody hires a man with multiple DUIs, frozen wages, a trail of unpaid child support, and a reputation for screwing over everyone who trusted him. He still owes me thousands. He will probably die still owing it. Kaylee? I heard she tried moving to Florida with some guy she met online. The guy dumped her 2 states away when he found out about her legal issues. Last anyone knows, she's living in a shelter somewhere. No custody of her kid. No family talking to her. Nothing. They destroyed themselves. I didn't have to keep kicking them once they started falling apart. I'm good. I got promoted at work. Bought a newer car. Redid the kitchen the way I always wanted. My kids are thriving. They're smart, funny, strong kids. They're my whole world. We laugh a lot these days. We make a lot of noise. We make messes. We live. Jake doesn't even come up anymore. He's a ghost now. A lesson in what happens when you throw away the people who loved you most. No. I lost my temper some days. I wasted too much time thinking about how to hurt them instead of focusing on healing myself. I made mistakes. I should have walked away sooner. I should have put them behind me the second I saw what they really were. But if I had just rolled over, swallowed it, pretended it was okay, I think part of me would have died. And I refuse to let that happen. Jake once looked me dead in the eye and said, "You were never supposed to see this." But I did. And I saw it all the way through. And when the dust settled, when all the lies and betrayals and heartbreak were stripped away, I was still standing. And they were the ones left crawling.